Yeah, so I just keep having to make these videos because the fact that the Greenville Group has decided to place three criminally insane, verifiably criminally insane career thugs and criminals who are too impaired to leave the building all around me in all three adjacent units, even though there's plenty of other places I could have placed these people, causes some ongoing disturbances in and around my living space and affects the functionality and safety of this living space. And one of the things that the Greenville Group is participating in is the placement of surveillance devices in and around my bathroom and in and around my living space for the benefit of the large population of registered sex offenders that they are catering to and choosing to house in all three buildings of the complex that they own on the corner of Union Ave and Green Street in Jamaica Plain, Boston, Massachusetts. I have always been told, I've lived in this building for 12 years, 12 and a half now, actually. And when I moved in, this was a very different environment than it is now. The Greenville Group, I think, was not in ownership of this building, or maybe the ownership had just been transferred. And everybody was pretty normal. There were no issues. There were no sex offenders in any of the adjacent units. Everybody around me had jobs. Everybody was functional, left the building every morning, came back in the evening after work. I was working full-time as a highly paid senior associate scientist at Merrimack Pharmaceuticals in Kendall Square. My base salary before bonuses and performance-based incentives was $87,000. And with the performance-based bonuses and incentives, went up to $96,000 for the first year that I worked for them. I was living here because I needed a place to stay after my roommates sold the condo that we lived in near Forest Hills, and they moved to New Hampshire. So I really needed a quick place to live. I was also paying back a lot of student loans. I had about $125,000 worth of student loans from the 5.5 years I spent in my PhD program for clinical developmental psychology here at a private university in the Boston area. So, but everybody was normal. There were no issues. I don't think I called the police once in the first 2.5 years that I lived in this building. Now things are very different. And the Greenville Group is not just choosing to sponsor and house a proportionately large number of career criminals, violent thugs, mentally disturbed, psychopaths and sex offenders, but they are actively participating in preventing the court system and the police from taking any action against these violent thugs and criminals and sex offenders. I was told by Oleg Eliseyev, the property manager, that the 5 Union Ave building, which is where I live, is for people who have jobs and who are functional and have to, pay rent out of pocket. So that's why I have always lived in this building. I've always paid rent out of pocket. I have never received any kind of Section 8 rental assistance. The only time I did receive any kind of funding for rent was during the pandemic when, like many other people, I was out of work, and I was out of work for 2 years and therefore relied on grants to pay my rent. Grants are different than Section 8. Section 8 is an ongoing federal program for people who can't pay their rent. But grant funding is something you have to apply for on your own every few months. And it's not guaranteed. It's based on first come, first serve availability or whatever. But my point is, in spite of the fact that Oleg Eliseyev claims that the 5 Union Ave building is for people who have jobs and who are functional and not criminally insane, he himself has placed criminally insane sex offenders and violent thugs in all 3 adjacent units to mine, and none of these criminally insane violent thugs and sex offenders ever leave the building. The creep in 76, according to Mr. Eliseyev, works full-time for the Newton Public Schools. Really? He works full-time for the Newton Public Schools from the corner below my bed, where he spends 24 hours a day making violent pounding and banging noises, almost without a break. And the violent pounding and banging is very selective. It happens only at certain times, not times of the day, but when I do certain things, but not others in the privacy of this unit. And that happened just now. There's this psychotic pervert in 88 next door who spends 24 hours a day literally blasting loud video game noise, slasher movie noise, and then porn. So Saturday night when I came home at around 1 a.m. after being out for 6 hours, I was standing at my door, unlocking the door, and all of a sudden, Creepin' 88 starts blasting really loud porn noises. So I had to listen to a bunch of weirdos moaning and groaning as I was trying to unlock my door. That is a mentally disturbed piece of shit that obviously is too dysfunctional to have a job of any kind. Same thing with the thug directly below in 76. That sick piece of shit has come up to my door half a dozen times and become violent against my door or against my body when I've tried to open that door or when I've tried to access my door from being down the hall. He has also thrown things at my head, taken the phone out of my hand and run off with it. That was in March of 2022, and a police report was filed, a 911 call was made. Thankfully, I always have a backup flip phone on me somewhere in one of my bags in case somebody does run off with my cell phone to prevent me from calling 911 on them. So any type of, behavior like that, these people don't work. I mean, if they had a job, they would get fired immediately for being violent towards their coworkers, for throwing things at their coworkers' heads, for shoving their coworkers around, for slamming things around when they can hear people doing things they don't like. It is not possible for these severely behaviorally disturbed nut jobs in 76, 88, and also the psychopath who lived in the bathroom of 78 behind my kitchen sink for 9 of the last 10 years, but keeps living in this building. And then she keeps accessing the vacant premises of her former unit. Jasmine Irizarry, she's a registered sex offender. According to the Greenville Group, she's a very talented hacker who, quote, can hack into anything. She is so good. Direct quote from Oleg Eliseyev. And she's also been referred to by several Greenville employees as, quote, their surveillance expert. She's always in the bathroom of Unit 78, directly behind the wall of my kitchen sink, 24/7. She doesn't work outside of this building either, although I suspect she's getting paid by the Greenville Group or somehow sponsored to engage in harassment of tenants that they don't like and have been trying to get rid of for years for reasons that have nothing to do with any actual behavioral issues, but simply race and gender-based prejudice. The Greenville Group does not like white women. That's a fact, as evidenced by the number of white women who live in this building, which is 1. I am the only one. And I don't need to start crunching numbers here to prove that they are so prejudicial towards white women that not a single white woman lives in this entire building. And the fact that I am the only white woman who lives in this building, and I'm also the only one who keeps getting aggressively physically assaulted and harassed by all these psychotic male nut jobs and Jay Irizarry, who thinks she's a man or behaves like a man, that's prejudice towards women in general, but then prejudice towards Caucasian females especially. The reason I'm making this video is just now I was talking about how over the last 7-8 days, items that I've been using to secure my stuff when I leave this unit have disappeared from their hiding places where I hide them in this unit. One of these things is a roll of duct tape. Duct tape is kind of expensive. It's like, $7 or $8 per roll. It's not terribly cheap. And I was hiding a roll of duct tape in a special hiding place that nobody should have any knowledge of. I use that duct tape to tape my fridge shut when I leave because over the last year, somebody who keeps getting into this unit has been contaminating my food. It took me a while to figure out that my food was being contaminated, but I started realizing that somebody was deliberately tampering with it when eating, sealed brand new snack packs of fruit snacks started making me violently ill within a couple of bites. That's when you know that something is not right. And I would open another fruit pack, in my fridge, and I would get the same result, meaning somebody was going through all my fruit packs and contaminating them. Gummy fruit snacks don't go bad unless they've been sitting, under your sink for like 2 years or something. They're basically pure sugar and gelatin. They don't rot very quickly. They don't develop bacteria for no reason. So when I started getting really sick last January and February, when I'd get home from work and just want a fruit snack and would open these sealed little packets of fruit snacks and would get instantly ill within just a couple of bites, I knew something was up. So I started taping my fridge shut. And after I started taping my fridge shut and then photographing the tape patterns on my fridge before I left, then the contamination stopped all of a sudden. But just now, when I was talking about that on a video I made last night, the violent thug directly below in 76, who's been completely silent this whole afternoon, I didn't even know he was in his unit, started violently pounding the floor of this unit where I was sitting. That is prison code for I know what you're talking about, and I have something to do with it. He likes to make violent pounding noises directly below my toilet when I'm silently sitting on it to let me know that he knows that I'm sitting on my toilet, and he wants to intrude on my private activities or maybe have some kind of participation in them. That's how sick and twisted and desperate this piece of shit is. So I need to make a note that just now, while I was talking about the contamination of fruit snacks in my fridge as it was happening 6-8 months ago before I started taping up my fridge, suddenly the sick and twisted violent thug directly below in 76 started violently pounding the floor beneath the area where I am sitting right now making this video. And he has been silent, completely silent up until that point, and he has been silent since then, meaning he was responding to what I was talking about on the video that I was making, and he was acknowledging knowledge of what I was talking about. That is prison code for, I know what you're talking about. I had something to do with that. And the roll of duct tape that I was using to tape up my fridge disappeared about 5 days ago from where I was hiding it under a blanket in a corner in a drawer. And I have not found it. It has disappeared. It's been stolen out of this unit, along with cash, along with an ID, along with a box of nails, all hidden in different places, and a bag of old flip phones that I was saving because I have dozens of text messages to the Greenville group from years ago about dysfunctions and malfunctions of this unit. Obviously, Greenville doesn't want me having that evidence, and that's why those cell phones suddenly mysteriously disappeared from the bottom of my tote bag that is so big and so messy, nobody should be able to find anything in there unless they know exactly where I hide it and where I've been keeping it.